Well, good evening and welcome to the Salem Area Mass Transit District Board of Directors meeting for January 22nd, 2015. Tonight we're going to begin with the auditor's report and we'll then have public comment. People wishing to speak on some subject will have 3-minute limit. We'll then approve the consent calendar, which contains only the minutes from the December board meeting. We have 3 action items tonight, including the appointment of a citizen member to the budget committee, to our budget committee, the board's adoption of the 2015 legislative priorities, and we'll discuss a potential ballot measure for the May 2015 election. We have 2 information items tonight, including our update on our flexible transportation pilot project in West Salem, and a phase 1 update on our moving forward implementation. We'll then conclude with meetings and various reports. So with that, we'll open the meeting. And Melinda, would you take attendance? And Director Brad Coy will do the Pledge of Allegiance with us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Brad. Okay, any announcements or changes to the agenda? I have one. I have a certificate here from the Special Districts, what's their association. And it's in certificate in recognition of 25 years of dedicated leadership and advising and guiding and supporting policy decisions of our district for Marcia Kelly. Okay. Very nice. Next item, we have a presentation.
Yes, thank you. Jared Isaacson, our finance manager, will make the introductions.
Good evening, President Thompson and members of the board. Tonight I'd like to introduce to you Chuck Swank from Grove, Mueller & Swank, the district's auditors.
Thank you, sir. Good evening.
Good
I'm
evening.
Chuck Swank, as Jared just said, representing the audit firm of Grove, Mueller & Swank that did your audit for the year ended June 30, 2014. I will have a couple comments, but I want to reiterate that the real purpose I'm here, along with Kylie Moore, she did the work, I take the credit. But my real purpose is if there's any questions whatsoever of the board of the independent auditors, I want you to feel free that you can ask them, and at a later date, if you want to contact us, that is your privilege. We do work for the board, and I want to reiterate that. Now, that all being said, we audited the financial statements. You should have received an independent auditor's report on your financial statements. Volume-wise, that would be the thickest document. It is an unmodified opinion, which is what you want. That keeps everybody happy. And there are really no findings in the independent auditor's report related to the financial statements. Compliance with the state requirements, we'll get to the federal requirements in a minute, is reiterated in that document. Now you're all turning madly. Do you want any further clarification on the financial statements, or are they fairly straightforward?
They were pretty straightforward. I think they were
Okay.
straight.
The second document in size would be the federal report called the Federal Compliance Report. As you have been and continue to be a recipient of federal funds in excess of $500,000, you easily exceed that. You are required annually to have a single audit. It's dictated by the federal government based on your federal funding. It's mandated on the auditors, and we annually cycle your federal funds so that we audit approximately 25% of your federal funds annually. The federal government insists that that number be achieved and that we report directly on your compliance with the requirements of a recipient of federal funds. And so you will find an opinion in that document that says you complied with the requirements of the major federal programs. That's an accountant term of how we select which programs get audited as you get them from various funding sources. But you complied in all material respects with the requirements of the federal program that we audited this year. Okay? Furthermore, we are also required to put a report in there on your compliance as far as the financial reporting and compliance with other laws and regulations, and both of those reports are without exception. The last part of that document, you're going to find what they call the Schedule of Findings and Question Costs. There is a reference to a finding in year 2013. It's called Finding 2013-001, or I think that's how it's numbered. And that finding, then, we have to follow up in the subsequent year. And if you read the very last page of the document, you'll see the district has complied, and that is no longer a finding. But we have to close the finding as far as the Fed's concerned. So it's an absolutely unqualified report as far as the federal compliance is concerned as well. Okay, we issued two other documents, much shorter. One is called the governance letter, my pile here. Communication with those charged with governance. And the best way I can describe that document, I'm trying to make sure I differentiate it between your other small document, is it's addressed solely to the board. And this is our requirement to communicate directly with them. Everybody find the one that wanted to find it? It's a 3-pager, direct solely to the board. They got it? Yep. Okay. The purpose of this letter is to communicate,
Got it in here.
the auditor communicate to the board anything that we believe under generally accepted auditing standards and or the federal requirements must be communicated to the board. Our profession is not willing to believe that I'm going to come up here and tell you the truth. So they want us to put it in writing. So the purpose of this is to exactly do that. It tends to be a little boilerplate-ish. I apologize for that. That's the bad part. The good part is it doesn't have significant findings in it. That's the good news. So if you read through that, you will find some references to things we had to do in the audit. You will find some references to your requirements under the audit, and you'll find a reference to journal entries that we recommended be recorded and their acknowledgement that they were recorded. And oftentimes, as we go through an audit, we come up with some suggested adjustments, for lack of better terms. We present those to management. Management then makes the decision whether they're not going to record them or not. We're much happier when they do. But that's the purpose of that. Okay, that is really the crux of the governance letter. It does make reference to what's called a management letter. That one is actually, I believe, addressed to the general manager, and they have courtesy copied you as the board on that letter, and it's my understanding. And let me just clarify here that, pardon me?
Okay, go ahead. Never mind.
We're
It's
good?
in your Google Drive folder, that letter.
The purpose of this letter is to communicate things that we believe do not rise to the magnitude of they need direct board involvement. As a recipient of federal funds, if we believe there were material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in the district's controls, we would report that as part of the federal compliance report. We are required to do that. When we have issues that we want to communicate to management that do not rise to that level, this is what we do. This is a what I call dot the I's and cross the T's type of recommendation, and I know that it'll be complied with. That pretty well takes care of my report. We got the utmost cooperation from finance. They did a great job, and I have that expectation, and they follow through on that. And I had, of course, great staff to perform it. So we appreciate the opportunity to work for the board. More than willing to answer questions.
Questions? Steve?
So approximately how much time is spent together with those two to compile this? What are we looking at?
300 hours?
Actually, in the field, we come out for a week in the summer and then a week in the fall. So we're actually on site. Sorry.
Oh, you can come up here and have this thing.
Okay. So we come out for a week in the summer and do what we call interim testing. So we kind of look at the processes and the different things that the district does. So look at the payroll process, how you cut your checks, that kind of stuff.
And how many people are out there then?
And there are 4 of us that usually come out during that week, and it's usually a 4-day week. And then another week in the fall with another 4-person staff for another at least 4 days. And then there's wrap-up time in the office. So 300 hours is probably a pretty good estimate
Okay.
of what we do.
Yeah, and I'm looking at close to the back of the page in the report where there have been some understatements of 5307 funds. Have we rectified why that was happening?
Do you want
Have
to?
we dealt with that?
Which report are you looking at?
The governance?
On the prior year's financial statements, 2012, 2013, the understatements of the 5307.
Oh, is this,
In the
Is-
CAFR.
is this is in the federal financial report, the prior year finding?
Right.
Yes, that has been rectified.
Okay. So
I didn't clarify that well enough.
or in 14, it won't be as significant.
14, there was no issue.
Okay, good.
It was fixed in 13, but it was, the auditors had to point it out and help us fix it.
Sure.
So-
Okay, great.
Other questions? Okay, well, Chuck, as usual, you did a wonderful job. Well, no, somebody did a wonderful job over there.
The staff did a wonderful job. I want to give the credit where the credit's due.
Thank you for
If
reporting.
auditors can come in and be auditors, they love it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, and we appreciate the opportunity to work for you.
You bet. Thank you, Chuck. Okay, the next item is public comment, and we have no one signed up. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak? Last chance. Seeing none, we'll go on to the consent calendar. Do I have a motion?
I'll move the consent calendar.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we accept the consent calendar that just contains the 1 minute set of minutes. Any comments, questions? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. We're going to just hum right through this. Okay, the action items tonight, appointment of a citizen member to the Budget Committee.
Yeah, thank you. This issue tonight is whether or not to appoint a citizen member to the Budget Committee to represent Sub-District 6. Scott Bassett, who is in the audience here this evening, has been recommended by Director Krebs to be considered to be added onto the Budget Committee. His application is in your packets, and he is available for any questions that the board may have. And so, of course, the recommendation from Director Krebs is he be appointed, so.
Well, we have Scott here today if you'd like to ask him any questions, but I've known Scott for quite a while, and one of the things, looking over his resume, he has a lot more background in financial matters than I do, and so he will be very good on our committee because he'll be able to look at things that maybe some of us that don't have quite that much experience don't look for. He's also been very active in a number of civic activities. He recently was a political candidate, and sorry that he lost, but he is very interested in transit and transportation issues, so I think he will be a very good member of our committee. And if you have any questions, I told him we won't beat him up too bad. But
Scott, would you like to come forward and just say a few things to us before we move you in?
Good. Members of the board, I appreciate the chance to be considered to help review budget and finance documents. I retired from state government about over a dozen years as a budget analyst working in the budget management division of the executive branch, and have also been a budget analyst within state agencies, and also at Department of Transportation is where I retired from. And so I've been involved in reviewing performance measures and seeing level of service go down in so many different categories across the state. And it will be nice to be able to look closely at budget within your organization, and I hope that I get that opportunity.
Any questions of Scott? Did you want to make a motion?
Yes. I move that the board
Thank
appoint
you,
Scott
Scott.
Bassett to the Budget Committee as a citizen member representing Subdistrict 6 for the 3-year term that ends June 30, 2017.
Second.
Okay, is there any discussion or further questions? Okay, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Congratulations. Second item is board adoption of the 2015 legislative priorities.
Yes. So as you're aware, the board annually adopts legislative priorities that set direction for legislative activities and projects throughout the year. The priorities are used as a guide when responding to legislative matters and as a communication tool with legislators and other interested parties. We have developed a federal and a state legislative agenda in conjunction with CFM Strategic Communications, our legislative advocacy group. And I'd like to walk through the highlights of each agenda. So starting with the federal legislative agenda, as we look to seek out grant opportunities, our priorities start first with bus replacement. The district will be looking to request funds to replace 6 compressed natural gas buses that have surpassed their useful life. This is a pretty routine project for the district from a federal grant perspective, and we will be facing bus replacement needs over the next 6 or 7 years as the fleet starts to age past its useful life. The next project is Regional Transit Center Design, Engineering, Construction. This is really the transit centers with a focus on the South Salem Transit Center. We're looking to seek out up to $2 million of federal grants if the opportunity becomes available during the legislative session. Intelligent Transportation System, ITS project. This has been on for a couple of years. Seeking out federal funds to help us replace and update all of our technology on the bus and to look for new opportunities for technology, specifically trying to get next bus information system out into the service area so customers know in real time when the bus is going to show up to help improve their transportation experience. From a policy perspective at the federal level, the district has generally supported the American Public Transportation Association's legislative priorities, but there are a couple that are of specific importance to the district and small operators in general. The first is to restore the FTA bus and bus facility account to pre-MAP 21 levels and restore the competitive grant account. This is a continuation of this policy issue from last year. Is basically as they talk about a new transportation bill to advocate for the restoration of the bus and bus facilities accounts. Back in 2013, that fund was cut by more than 57% and then went to a fully formalized process, eliminating the opportunity for grant opportunities or discretionary awardings, limiting really the ability for us to seek out lumpy awards for when we need high volume of purchases. It's not generally a cyclical flow. We'll go several years and then need a high amount of federal money, and then that's where we look to do that. So we're advocating to restore those accounts, restore the alternative fuels credit and include other alternative fuels, and also the transit commuting parity benefit. Both of these are important to us, and were extended only through December 31st of 2014. And so we're advocating for reinstatement of them, and actually make them permanent. The importance of the alternative fuels credits is that's approximately $170,000 a year to the district, and as a tax credit for using alternative fuels. And then support of district direct funding of municipal and other transit projects. There is a bill, it's the Innovations in Surface Transportation Act. Within the Transportation Reauthorization Bill, it would initiate a state-by-state grant program that would put transportation funds in the hands of local communities and transit agencies. And for Oregon, that would be approximately $65 million a year. And so we're supportive of that. If that piece is in there, transit districts, along with other municipal governments, would compete for that money. But if it's going to be there, we want to make sure we're a part of it. And then the last federal agenda policy issue is health retirement accounts, also known as VEBA. We've supported this legislation last year. We're continuing that support. It provides Northwest employees of political subdivisions flexibility in designated beneficiaries for the health retirement accounts when they pass away. In 2006, there was an IRS ruling imposing rules on HRAs, which caused participants in these plans to lose earned benefits if they die without a spouse or dependent. In 2008, Congress made a fix for certain IRA plans, but not all. And so this is really a technical fix to include plans established by or on behalf of a state or political subdivision. It's a non-controversial technical fix to prior legislation. At the state level, our top legislative priority for this legislative session is the reinstatement of the state employee bus pass program. In addition to that, Salem-Keizer Transit supports the Oregon Transit Association's legislative priorities for this session, specifically state funding for transit. We seek general fund appropriation that gives transit providers flexibility to spend on operations and capital equipment. You know, usually our trouble is trying to get enough operating money, and so if a general fund appropriation is there, having that flexibility is key. Transportation for seniors and people with disabilities. The OTA is partnering with the Oregon Transportation Forum and the Campaign for Oregon Seniors and People with Disabilities to secure additional transit funding for seniors and people with disabilities. The recommendation is to seek out $70 million. That would be the level that would fulfill the estimated need for those types of services in Oregon. Also seeking revenue reform. It's a vital component in an effort to create long-term dedicated state funding for transit and non-roadway transportation. And the last priority is the Connect Oregon program. We seek to continue that program. It would be the next iteration, and seeking to fully fund it at $100 million, like the first couple of Connect Oregon iterations. So with that, we're recommending that the board adopt these legislative priorities for the 2015 year. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Alan, if something comes up that's not covered under this, but that we would be wanting to do, what is the way to bring that to management so that?
You can just come through me, talk to me. We'll look to see if it's in line with our current priorities, we can move forward. If not, we may need to bring it back for board support.
Because it was my understanding that at some point there were organizations advocating for the student bus pass program to come back in for transit agencies as a way of encouraging students to walk to public transportation to do things, to make healthier students. And I haven't read all the bills, so I don't know whether it's actually a part of a bill or a part of a budget thing, but if that happens, we could amend our legislative priorities, right? 'Cause-
Absolutely, if something comes up, we're just trying to look at the big picture. The conversation you're talking about, I know we were involved in it as part of inclusion in the Oregon Transportation Forum's transportation agenda. And it was in, it was out, I'm not sure where it is now, but OTA had taken it off their agenda until it's been finalized, so.
Okay, I just sort of wanted to make sure that there were opportunities to
Yeah.
do that if something does come up, because I think
Absolutely.
it's always helpful to have
Yeah.
students being able to access things.
Yeah, as you're well aware, legislative sessions are very fluid and dynamic, so that's CFM helps us to stay on top of that, and if necessary, take action to make sure our interests are addressed. Thank you.
Anyone else? Should we have a motion?
I'll move the adoption of our federal and state legislative agenda priorities.
I'll second.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Was that adequate? I imagine it was, yeah. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Thank you. Potential ballot measure for 2015 election, May 2015 election.
Yes, thank you. The item that is coming before you is whether or not the board should direct the general manager to draft ballot titles for potential May 19th election and to bring them back at a future time for consideration. As way of background, you know, the district a little over a year ago went through a comprehensive service analysis process with Jarrett Walker and Associates. As a result of that process, they looked at our current service and recommended improvements as well as identifying unmet transit needs in the community. From that, we've developed a service model. Currently, the service model is focused 65% on high likely ridership routes and 35% broad coverage of the service area. Late last year, you adopted a new service model that changes that ratio, focusing on improved efficiency and effectiveness on the high ridership routes, changing that model to 75% on increasing ridership and 25% for broad neighborhood service. After that, we developed a draft service plan with the help of the consultants, and the board received that and then directed staff to go out and get community feedback and comments on the process. As a result of that, we've got a revised phase 1 of the moving forward plan that we'll be bringing next month, and there'll be a report on that status in a few minutes for potential implementation this September. Phase 2 of that plan is the evening and weekend and holiday service that is not able to be currently funded. So what we have done, as you recall, we engaged Echo Northwest to do a study of the two likely revenue sources for the district, of property tax and the payroll tax, and to raise $5 million a year in order to implement phase 2. As a result, they have told us that a property tax levy of 58 cents per $1,000 of assessed value would be required if we chose the property tax route, and if the payroll tax, it's a 0.0021 of annual payroll. Regardless of the source, this would be a supplemental revenue source to the district's existing 76 cents per $1,000 of assessed value of property tax, the district's permanent tax rate. If so choosing, either option would require a vote of the electorate of residents living within the Salem-Keizer urban growth boundary, and the board will need to decide which revenue source, if they choose to move forward, to select to implement phase 2. To assist the board in the decision-making process, community input is needed. As you're aware, on January 8th, we presented our service planning funding options to the Salem Area Chamber of Commerce. A copy of it is in your packets. On January 21st, which was yesterday, the Chamber Board of Directors were to meet on that and announce their position. They have made that, and I have copies of their findings to present to you. In addition to that, the board will be holding community stakeholder meetings next Monday and Tuesday to continue to gather community input. If the board decides to take action, it should be noted that local governing bodies must file their notice with Marion County elections by March 19th of this year. Election day would be May 19th, and as a result, the board must decide on a ballot measure title prior to the March 19th date. The ballot title would include a proposed revenue source. So with that, staff's recommending that the board direct the staff to prepare draft ballot title statements that would allow for the implementation of Phase 2. One would focus on a property tax levy, and one would focus on a payroll tax for discussion and possible future action. Staff's recommending at the February 26th board meeting, but the board is open to change that date if they so choose. So with that, that is our recommendation, so we can prepare to move forward on a potential ballot measure. And with that, I'll take any questions.
So just to clarify on the payroll tax, it gets really crazy, but it basically boils down to 0.0021, correct? That's the right numbers of zeros?
Yes.
I believe, so, yeah, that's the
So-
factor. The factor.
And so it's, that would be less than the state currently pays in lieu of a payroll tax to every transit district in
That's correct.
the state.
I
Because
believe the
they pay on a 0.0006.
6.
So,
Other questions?
I think it's time for us to move forward on this.
You've got the motion in front of you.
Sure. I move that the board direct staff to prepare draft ballot title statements that would allow for the implementation of Phase 2 of the Moving Forward Plan. One statement would call for a 5-year operating levy at 58 cents per $1,000 of assessed value, and one statement would call for a payroll tax of 0.21% of annual payroll for review and possible action at the February 26th board meeting.
Have a second?
second,
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? There was some consideration of maybe moving this action up to the second, to our, make a special board meeting on our work session. Is there any one in favor of making an amendment to that, to have that happen, or do we want to stay with the 26th? We can go either way. Give the staff a little more time, perhaps, to go ahead, Alan.
You could also just delay and have the work session, and if you decide you want to move quicker, you can call for a special meeting prior to the 26th. Don't have to do that today.
Okay. So-
I think, given the sort of situation that we're in right now, making the motion to keep it with the 26th is a good idea. It'll give board members time to talk to people in the community and do some other things so that we know the best way to move forward.
And we do have a couple of community-wide meetings coming up first part of next week, which would be helpful in helping us make some decisions also. Okay, any other questions or discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. All right, information items. Flexible Transportation Implementation Plan.
I think Jared Chalk, our Planning and Technology Manager, will present the staff report.
Good evening, President Thompson and members of the board. As you likely recall, in June of this past year, several PSU graduate students, forming a consulting team called Paradigm Planning, performed a review for us of flexible transit opportunities in our area. They called that review Capturing the Ride. In August, the board of directors directed the general manager to develop a pilot project plan, implementation plan, to test out such flexible transit in our area. Specifically, the area targeted was West Salem. I'm pleased to present the pilot project proposal. At this time, it's our attempt to maximize flexibility and to also maximize coverage. The service area in West Salem has traditionally been difficult for our fixed route services to thrive. It's punctuated by hilly topography and roads that are difficult for larger vehicles to navigate. Our first step was identifying through streets, essentially, roads where our vehicles could travel through without having to be concerned about being stranded or a U-turn situation or anything along those kind of lines. In an effort to maximize flexibility, we then identified around 20, I think there's 23, flexible stops throughout the area that would provide this flexible service. Now, the unique thing about these stops is that they will not be served by a vehicle on every trip. Rather, these flex stops are only served when a request is made by a customer to receive service at that area. We chose these stop locations by doing GIS analysis and looking at the distance that residents in West Salem may have to travel to one of these stops. We've managed to capture most residents within a quarter mile of any of the designated flexible stops. When I talk about the activated stop, it really raises the question about how flexible this transit should be. We spent a lot of time grappling with this issue. This graphic shows the comparative time cost for, as an example, of several different means of transportation. The first option would be a taxi or an individual passenger vehicle or some sort of car. You might expect the trip to take 10 minutes. Traditional fixed route service will probably take 15 minutes. It may not go on the direct route that you would travel, and there's a chance that the vehicle may have to make stops to pick up other passengers. One of the items that we considered was a deviated fixed route, where you'd have the elements of the fixed route, but then the bus would deviate from its course to pick up passengers in an attempt to add that flexibility. One of the problems that we had with that model was that it created an even longer travel pattern for would-be passengers, because not only do you have the fixed route element of perhaps not going exactly the right direction for you, but in picking up passengers, but also the deviation component, which could add time into your individual trip. A completely flexible route, on the other hand, could have that possible shortest trip. If no other trips were booked at the same time, you could get in this theoretical example, you could get there in 10 minutes. But it could end up taking the longer 30 minutes, but it wouldn't ever really be longer than deviated fixed route. In this area, we thought to maximize flexibility, maximizing flexibility would provide the greatest ability for us to provide that coverage service. The customer experience in the proposed flexible transit service is going to be unique among our Salem-Keizer transit services. There will be an opportunity for traditional walk-up service at the Glen Creek Transit Center. Every hour, the flexible transit vehicle is scheduled to return to the Glen Creek Transit Center for walk-up reservations. The vehicle operator will be able to accept walk-up reservations. The bulk of the transportation reservations will occur online, on a smartphone, or by calling customer service or working with our customer service staff. I'll get to the brains of the system in just a second. Initially, for the fares, we're proposing a no-fare structure for the first 6 months of the service to try to make the service most attractive and to generate ridership, particularly since it will be a new type of service for us to offer. After 6 months, it would be appropriate to assess the potential fare levels. It's also expected that as people use this service, they may end up running on more traditional fixed route services. They would, of course, pay any fare for those fixed route services when they boarded those. This is just an example of a painted stop. We've been working with the city to identify the possibility of using paint to identify stops, or possibly we may use traditional poles and signs to identify stops. In either case, they will be distinctly branded and highly visible for passengers. The fleet will be comprised, initially anyway, with 2 vehicles, a primary and a spare. The plan is to use what previously were cherry lift vehicles. The smaller size vehicle will allow us to get around the hill of West Salem much more effectively. The heart of this new system is going to be the back end, the back office computer dispatching system. We've spoken with several vendors that offer these types of solutions, and we're confident that we can rapidly implement one in our area. The reason why customers are expected to use smartphones, the website, or go through customer service is because it takes a computerized system to dynamically generate a manifest for our operators, meaning when a pickup and a drop-off are occurring, there's the possibility that another reservation could come in to create a completely efficient and maximized route structure. So it has to be dynamic, and it needs a computerized system in the back end running it. And there are agencies that are doing this type of service. The marketing for the service will include neighborhood and rider education. Particularly as we start to place flex stops, we'll need to do good neighborhood education. We also plan to extensively market the service on the existing fixed routes. We'd like to implement this service in early summer, possibly in the June timeframe, to allow overlap with the current chariot service. That way, customers in West Salem, particularly in routes 22 and 23, will be able to try out both services, and it allows us to work out any kinks without leaving anybody stranded. We're proposing a direct mail to the residents of West Salem explaining the new service and providing additional information. We'll also have notices on Redline and Chairlift, and of course, website and social media as well. These costs are preliminary and they're rough estimates, especially as we do not have the technology provider ironed out at this point. We're only dealing with budgetary quotes from those vendors at this point. But the service comes in at a significant decrease from a fixed route cost, which is pretty substantial. We're taking an area, we're taking a fairly large geographic area and proposing to serve it with a significantly decreased cost than regular fixed route service if it's successful. And just to be transparent, a subsequent year, should we continue, would be close to the same annual price because the vehicles would already exist and have been rebranded and whatnot. The timeline for the project, we're still relatively early in the project. We've been working on this proposal, and we're excited to share it now with the board. We will be finalizing the implementation plan over the coming months, and we'll soon start working to acquire the technology needed, prepare the vehicles that are required, also work on marketing, finalizing marketing plans, work on that marketing and training of the operators that would be driving the vehicles in the spring, implementing technology and getting the bus ready later in the spring with that tentative start date in June so that we maximize that overlap. Of course, the board will be updated throughout this process, and it will ultimately be the board that weighs the success or lack of success of the possible service. We tentatively propose board updates in October, December, April, and May, with really the April 2016 date being the time when we would need to consider whether or not the service would be best to continue or if it needs to be modified in some way or another. What success looks like is a little bit difficult to determine at this point. In talking to partner or peer agencies, with similar type services, they've had 3 to 4 to 5 boardings per hour, and we think that that seems like a reasonable target for the for our service starting out. Another success measure is having a similar, or as demonstrated, what should be a fairly reduced cost compared to traditional Chariot's fixed route, but providing significantly more coverage. And finally, and probably most important, will be success as measured through positive customer support, using surveys and any other mechanisms available for us. So I'm pretty excited about this project, and it is novel, and it's kind of neat, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have about it.
Steve. Microphone.
Is there a reason that you did not identify Glen Creek and Dokes Ferry as a spot?
We took, in some of the areas where we had existing ridership, we didn't put flex stops in those locations because we knew that fixed route in that specific spot wasn't generating ridership, so we tried to pull it off of those those more main corridors.
Okay.
I'm expecting that with the nature of this project, it will probably be more fluid with how we place stops. And so if we're finding after several months that a certain area looks like it should have service, or a certain area seems like it's really not being utilized, with the pilot like this, we have some flexibility to maneuver it a little.
Yeah, does Chattanooga Heights not come within our boundaries?
It does.
I thought it did,
It does.
our service. Yeah, well, that's a hill, and people don't ride because they don't want to walk back up at the end of Glen Creek,
Okay.
all the way out.
There are some limitations. We've tried to keep it
I know.
condensed. I can look into that specific area though,
Okay,
and see if
the
how
only
far
reason
away
I
it
say
is.
that is I've had phone calls from up there about getting service, and then when we got it to Glen Creek, he tried it a couple times, and then in the rain he didn't want to walk up the hill, and so I haven't heard from him since. But I know that of one rider that called. Also, are you planning on putting it in the West Side newspaper? That's a free mailer. Put an article, and it goes out to 11,000 people in West Salem. 11,000 mailboxes.
I think that's something that we'll definitely look into. There's going to be aspects of the marketing campaign that are going to have to be
Ironed out.
a little bit more ironed out, and that's one of them. And also all of the exact area where the mailer will occur.
Yeah.
We're going to have to develop some specificity around that.
And are you going to go to the neighborhood association with this?
Yes.
Yes.
I knew that.
Yeah.
They love it.
NWSBA. Thank you.
Other questions? John, use your microphone though.
Just for you. I think this is a very exciting project. A couple of questions have occurred. I wouldn't be surprised, but what there may be a fairly slow uptake because customers will have to take a step, probably with their either by making a phone call or using their internet device to get that first trip under their belt. And I just wanted to make sure that I understood that if there were, the bus gets back to the Glen Creek Transit Center every hour, maybe not on the hour, but hourly. If there were no calls for service, would it remain there then for that hour until?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it would. That'll be the sort of the default location and the recovery point.
Okay, that's what I kind of expected, but I was not sure. Another question is, how far in advance do we anticipate the riders would have to call in?
That is something that is flexible, and in the initial, I'm trying to see if we have it documented in here. I believe we were looking at, I think, less than 24 hours for now. Actually, I think we even have more flexibility than that. The big difference is there's not a minimum.
Mm-hmm.
So, we may alter, how far in advance you can book, And we've intentionally, at this point, not allowed subscription service. We may add that in if it looks like that would work, but there's no real minimum, meaning that there's no 2 hours until you book. You can book for a trip that's actually active at that moment. It's real time.
Okay, so basically, it really is a trial period. We'll see how it goes and what we can accommodate based on. Yeah, I think it ought to be interesting. This kind of service and this kind of access to trip information on mobile devices and the internet is clearly something that other of our dial-a-ride services hanker for, so I'm sure it will be watched very closely.
Marcia?
If you start getting calls to have a stop location on like Glen Creek or Orchard Heights, although we're not having many riders there right now, would you be able within this to put a stop location in? There are a lot of reasons why people don't take the bus on major arterials, like if it's not running often enough to make it convenient, but this might make it more convenient because it's more real time. And just because I go to church and I have a friend that I help with medical stuff I go up and down Glen Creek probably 10 times a week. And I know there may be some access to Glen Creek that might not make it an easy access to another stop that's off Glen Creek.
We're out of necessity with this pilot. We're going to have to be very dynamic in how we approach it, because some things won't work with how we've done it, and some things will work very well. And we're going to have to fine tune it over this period because it's so new for us. Stop placement is something that it may be that we've hit 100%. We got a home run with our first placement, but it's very likely that some of them will have to move, and we need to be flexible enough so that we can do that within the confines of that pilot. We only have 12 months to make this thing work, so we will be flexible with stop placement.
And I would really encourage you to when you're advertising this, because this is the first time I've ever seen the stop locations myself, that when you're advertising this, you're willing to be a little bit flexible. The way we were with the moving forward, when after we put out what sort of looked like it was best, we started talking to people and we needed to do some adjustments. And so I think that would be very helpful.
Thank you.
Other questions? Bob?
I had a couple, or three actually. How does the rides per hour compare with what we're doing right now on those routes that will be replaced?
I can get an exact number, but I believe that's at the proposed. We're below 10 passengers per hour on those routes, as I recall. So it is within the realm of what we're expecting for flexible transit.
Okay, and we do get one load a day out of West Salem High School. That's going to be taken care of with some other?
In our current system, that's a great question. In our current system today, they're taken care of, and in the Moving Forward project as well. Should you approve those system changes, there's a high school trip available for them as well. So they should be taken care of.
And I would assume that, looking at this map, that you're going to also be touching the lines on Edgewater as a potential transfer point, and also accessing both of the grocery stores, Roth's and Safeway, so that might offer, for some people that are now having to use the red line, that would offer some alternative transportation.
Yes, actually, in fact, there are 2 points. Glen Creek Transit Center is the first where it will interface with Chariot's fixed route, but then also Safeway with the other location, giving access to the grocery stores. And also an important point is when I said the Glen Creek Transit Center that will stop there every hour, that's the minimum, that it will stop there every hour. In theory, if only one person called, the vehicle would pick up that person and bring them right back to Glen Creek Transit Center, assuming that that was their destination. And so it has the potential for being greater than 60-minute headways. So individuals should be able to get to those two locations, which we expect to be the most popular of the Flex Transit stops frequently.
I think we all understand this is a work in progress, and there's going to be a lot of modifications as we go along to meet the needs of the people that are using it.
Yeah, basically, we won't know what those needs are until we put the bus on the road and find out. Brad?
Or get telephone calls and say, why don't you have a stop here?
Right. Brad.
So the two places that they can choose to get a ride to would be the Glen Creek Transit Center and Safeway. Is that?
Director Coy, that's a great point. It's something that we've grappled with a little bit. We're proposing at this point to make it open, meaning your transportation occurs from an activated stop to an activated stop, irregardless of which stops they are. If we're experiencing demand that is making the system unsustainable, because intra-neighborhood transportation, I guess, if we're seeing too high of a rate of that, we may have to assess that. But at this point, we thought to leave that open to start with anyway. But that is a good.
So basically, they would have an interface that would say, which is your stop, your starting location, and which is your end location, and they could choose from pretty much any of the locations shown on here for.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if they arrive at the Glen Creek Transit Center, they'll be able to, if the bus is there, they can just get on, and it'll just take them to where they need to go to. Is that kind of how that works, or do they only leave that transit center at certain times?
So the way are you, Director Corey, you referring to like the return trip?
Yeah, for the
basically?
return trip.
Okay, so the way the return trip works is it's actually exactly the same as the departure one. So the customer may say, I'm going to be at Safeway at 5. So I'm going to request a pickup, at 5 o'clock at Safeway and a drop off at stop number 16. They could also do the same thing with Glen Creek Transit Center, pre-planning their trip, because every passenger on the trip is going to have an itinerary, essentially. Customers may also board at Glen Creek Transit Center. We're sort of offering a guarantee that once an hour it's going to be there. If all else fails, it'll be there. So you can board at that time, and the operator can actually create an itinerary, a trip for you right then. So they'll have the stability of having that hourly trip at Glen Creek Transit Center, but otherwise they'll be planning there and scheduling the trip based around their schedule.
Right. So you could spend your time there at Safeway and not see a bus unless you had made a call to schedule one, because Safeway is not on the we're going to be there for sure basis, just Glen Creek. Which is fine. Which is fine. Steve?
Who's going to get the calls?
We're going to have our customer service staff handle the phone calls. We're hopeful that the technology is attractive enough and useful enough that most folks use those methods. But of course, not everyone will be able to, and not everyone will want to. So we'll have that open. The advantage of using the online or the mobile tools is that you will have a real-time graphic for where your vehicle is. So you can really assess how long it's going to be.
So they'll be able to see where the bus is at any time?
Yes. Yeah. With the smartphone app,
Yeah.
you can see where the Flex Transit vehicle is in West Salem.
Oh.
In fact, the systems that we're looking at will actually send you a text message or give you a call when it's like 5 minutes from 5 or 10 minutes, I don't remember what it is, before your pickup. So you've scheduled a trip, the system's going to let you know, because again, the brains of the system are building this itinerary. It knows where the vehicle is. It knows that it's going to be at your stop in about 5 minutes. It'll drop you a message to let you know that you need to prepare because the vehicle's going to be there.
Who's using back office right now?
What other agencies?
Yeah.
One of the ones that we've been talking to is Denver. Denver has an implementation of this, and there's an agency in Florida that does as well. There are several, and there are some international ones. One of the vendors that we're working with is that we received a demonstration from is out of Spain, and apparently it's quite popular there.
Nobody local?
No, nobody
Coast.
in Oregon, and I don't think there's any in Washington that I know of. There may be some in California. It's actually, I was at a conference recently, and this type of service is really being talked about a lot right now in the industry because the technology is really there for this real-time dispatching, and it's a pretty exciting time.
Brad?
So, it kind of seems a little bit like Uber, right? Where on demand, just, you can't beat the free. So as far as the cost of running the service versus a normal fixed route service, how does that compare?
It's when we put together our rough estimates, it's looking about around half the cost of a regular route, but it's going to depend a lot on how that's based on our estimations of how much the vehicle is going to drive around. So it's going to be fluid there, but it does look like it's going to be less than traditional fixed route service.
Okay. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think if I could, I think the cost per hour is significantly less, but I think we're going to be putting on a lot more hours because one vehicle's in revenue all day.
Yeah, well, it should be, the vehicle will be in motion, let's say as much as a fixed route vehicle. So your mileage is probably going to be similar to a traditional fixed route based on your service window, right? But the revenue hour cost itself would be lower. So that's where a lot of your savings is. The vehicle itself is also one of the cherry lift vehicles. So I think numbers wise, it appears to be less expensive.
Okay.
Marcia?
Who are you envisioning driving this?
The service is proposed to be a contracted service, something similar to the Red Line service. It's sort of, and that's a different service in many ways and has some different funding structures, but it's that dial-a-ride, smaller cherry lift type vehicle service.
Proposing it under the umbrella of the Red Line services. They provide shopper shuttles, provide dial-a-ride, and now they'll provide flexi service.
Because they're a little bit more used to doing flexible service. There are some differences with Uber. We know that we have trained drivers driving all of our vehicles.
Right.
And we know that we have liability insurance.
Indeed. Okay, anything else? Well, thanks, Jared. Good job. Good job.
Thank you.
Next one is the Moving Forward Project Phase 1 Implementation Update.
And we'll ask Jared to stay right there.
President Thompson and members of the board, it's been so long since we spoke. I'm also excited to be speaking with you this evening about the Moving Forward project, although my update for Moving Forward won't be as lengthy as the Flexible Transit update. As you know, on June 26, 2014, the board accepted the comprehensive system analysis, which was discussed earlier in this meeting by Jarrett Walker and Associates. Shortly after, the board directed the general manager to develop plans for the Moving Forward project. After extensive public comment period, staff worked to update that proposal.
No wonder.
The board has received those modifications and been involved in those discussions on numerous occasions. Well, the final version of that Moving Forward project is very close to being ready. We're putting the final touches on it right now. On January 27th, we will post a public notice in the Statesman Journal announcing 30 days to the board's public hearing on February 26th. During that 30-day public period, staff will engage in outreach activities in addition to website updates, a video, which I'll show in just a moment, social media, neighborhood association meetings. We also have an intense schedule of outreach events that should be available in your memo. Those include an open house at the West Salem Library, at the South Salem Senior Center, 2 events at Center 50 Plus, the Salem Library. We have 3 open houses scheduled at our downtown transit center customer lobby. We're planning an event at Keizer Transit Center, at the Schenectady Community College Free Speech Table, and like I mentioned earlier, as requested at various neighborhood association or other associations as requested or as needed. Our time window for the outreach is much smaller than it was the first time, but we're still planning on investing a lot in getting the word out about the second version of the moving forward proposal. And this, the board will on February 26th close that public comment period and hold a hearing to determine if the moving project forward should be implemented. If implemented, that would occur in September of this year. Now, our marketing folks have put together a short video, which I'd like to show. We're going to use this video as the intro at some of our open houses and events. It just kind of creates a little bit of excitement about our project.
In 2014, Salem-Keizer Transit evaluated the way we provide bus service and developed a plan to improve service, one that increases frequency on busy routes that serve jobs, shopping centers, and schools. Buses will be scheduled every 15 minutes on busy routes. Routes will serve places people want to go, like the South Salem Senior Center, Schenectady Community College, Center 50 Plus, the Kroc Center, Lancaster Drive, and downtown Salem. More crosstown connections mean you can get across town with fewer transfers. Crosstown routes will run from the Keizer Transit Center to South Salem, from South Salem to West Salem, and from West Salem to Lancaster Drive. Last summer, we sought community feedback to make sure our plan reflected the needs and wants of the people we serve. You spoke, and we listened. We've made significant changes to the first draft of our plan to reflect your feedback. These service changes affect you. Find out more at chariots.org/movingforward. Learn what bus service will look like in Salem and Keizer beginning September 8th, 2015. Attend an outreach event, sign up for travel training, or give your feedback. Chariots, connecting people with places.
All right, and I don't think I could say it any better, so that concludes my presentation for this evening, but of course I would be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Questions? Okay, yeah, Brad, go ahead.
I just have one comment that that this is definitely an exciting time to be involved with Salem-Keizer Transit. Just to, I was looking at the agenda, the things that we're talking about, and it's nice to see the culmination of a lot of hard work. And so even though I'm not going to be continuing on after June, I'm very pleased that I get to be a part of what we're doing. So thank you for your work and for everyone Alan and the board and everyone else.
Thank you.
Other question? Another good job, Jared. Okay. I guess we're ready for reports. Let's see what we got here. Mid-Valley, Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments, the only meeting I had was an executive meeting where we decided on the winners of our, Council of Governments award programs that will be presented at next Wednesday's annual meeting. Am I too close?
Yeah, no, get closer.
Get closer?
Yeah.
Okay. The second one is Special Transportation Fund. I think, John, you've attended all of the meetings. I've
Right.
attended one of them, but
Right. I've been to both the North Marion and the Polk County just yesterday, and the full STF Advisory Committee at the beginning of the month. And we lacked a quorum for the full STF meeting in the beginning of January, but we still have the February meeting to go, and that's when the actual grants are reviewed, so we're still okay on that. It's pretty exciting and dynamic, this period at the beginning of every other year as the grants come through. It's looking pretty good. I will write up a report from my visit to Polk County yesterday. There were some interesting developments there, and I'll just commit it to paper and pass it around.
great, thank you. And Mid-Willamette Area Commission on Transportation.
We did not meet in January. However, last week our steering committee was asked to meet because there were some applications for a federal roads program that one of the questions is, does the Area Commission on Transportation have any input in this? And so in the December meeting, we knew this might happen, and that the Area Commission gave the steering committee the authority to make decisions in supporting projects. These are FLAP projects, Federal Land Access Program. And so there were three that we talked about. Only two may go forward because the third one may or may not be a good program. The one in Polk County, the Bureau of Land Management was really interested in Polk County putting forth this project, and they had done it before. And the one in Marion County is in the Slide area. The one in Polk County, there are commercial timber interests that are very interested and will probably provide in-kind material in order to help stop bridges washing out in some little areas. It's up in the Falls City area. And the one in Marion County is up on the North San EM, and they've had 5 slides, and they're trying to do some things to fix it because there are other properties in their parks and recreation that are on federal lands, as well as timber and some private timber that get really critically encumbered, as well as the residents up in that area if there are washouts. So we met for about 2 hours. We're not going to have a meeting in February because there are going to be 5 new members of the commission. And so they're going to do an orientation for those 5 members, and then we'll be meeting again in March, but I understand we have a very full March meeting.
Okay, Bob, how about the Salem-Keizer Area Transportation
We
Study?
did not meet. We are meeting Tuesday.
Okay, how about OMPOC?
OMPOC met last Friday, and it was dealing a lot with legislative priorities. There's a group called the Oregon Transportation Forum that has come out with proposals for transportation initiatives for the legislature, and OMPOC has passed those out to the various metropolitan planning organizations, and they're hoping to have a consensus to support a lot of that legislation. In that legislation is a senior disabled transit funding package, and also a funding, I shouldn't say package, a recommendation, and a recommendation for a student bus pass program. Some of the things that came out of that meeting that were interesting concerning transit, Corvallis has free transit, and they have pegged their transit price, or their transit tax, which is on the water bill, to the price of gasoline. And needless to say, they've had a big drop in their revenue, so they're having a little concern about that. Portland Metro was bragging about their new Tillicum Crossing Bridge. It's the first totally transit, pedestrian, and bikeway bridge. There will be no automobiles or private vehicles on there. It'll be strictly transit vehicles, which will be light rail, streetcars, buses, pedestrians, and bicycles. And that bridge is much lower than the Markham Bridge and the Ross Island Bridge because the river is no longer navigable in that area to large ships. The Coast Guard has closed that window, so it looks like there won't be any shipping coming south of the Markham Bridge now. In the Rogue Valley, they lost their election in November, which was 15 cents on the thousand, and so there's going to be cutbacks to RVTD services in May. And interesting thing is that the service between Grants Pass and Medford it's a new service, and it has been increasing in ridership and expanding. And now you can go with public transit from Cave Junction to Grants Pass to Medford all the way to Ashland. So it's pretty much connecting the Rogue Valley. But what happens when the May cutbacks occur is hard to say. Those are the main issues, and then we basically talked about scenario planning. And one of the things that came up in the scenario planning from another source, we remember when we had our speaker here earlier last year who spoke about the cost of owning an automobile is about $9,000 a year. Well, this one came up with a price of about $8,000 a year. So those numbers are fairly accurate. And this is from a completely different source. But we're going to have another meeting early in May to look mainly at legislative activities. And I shouldn't say May, March, and we don't have a date yet, but it'll be early in March, and the board is invited to attend if you'd like. They're very interesting meetings. I thought this last meeting was very good. One of the things we did was we came up with some legislative priorities of our own, and one of the things we liked was Mayor Charlie Hales in Portland has recommended that the legislature remove the restrictions on gas tax for cities, and that would be really nice because then cities like Salem could pay for their roads with a registration fee from motor vehicles rather than taxing homeowners for maintaining the streets. We do need good streets, we just need to figure out how to pay for them.
Okay, thanks, Bob. How about the river crossing?
No meeting?
Okay. And the Citizens Advisory Committee, you did have a meeting, I think.
Yeah, we did. It was run by Alan. I mean, he was giving us most of the input.
Facilitated.
Facilitated.
Yes.
Yes, directed, no, but facilitated, yes. And the main focus was moving forward, and they had a motion. I think you have a report in your...
I didn't see it in the
It will
packet.
be in the February packet when we bring that report forward.
Oh, okay. And I just want to say that the group is very energetic and involved. We talked about bus stops, discussed that, and then what they thought their needs were, and I guess that's about it.
Could I add something?
Sure.
Rich Stevenson, our new chair, did a fantastic job. It made a huge difference having. He was obviously very well prepared. He understood the issues, was able to lead it just flawlessly. I felt like it made a huge difference, and so I think we made a good choice of who to appoint as the new chair. So anyway, I just wanted to do a shout out to Rich for his efforts.
Thanks, Brad. Anyone else have anything here before we go into our other? Okay, let's go into the, did we catch everything we needed to do here? I think we did. Board management issues, general manager.
We just have a couple of items. First, I'm going to pass around. It seems like it's been a while since our last board meeting because of the holiday season. And as you recall, we entered a bus in the parade, the Festival of Lights Parade, and we were an award recipient, the 1430 KYKN Award for Best Use of Lights on our floats. And so we received a nice little trophy, so
Good.
I'll pass that around for you to look at.
Cute little guy.
In addition to that, just a reminder, next Wednesday is the Mid-Willamette Valley COGS annual meeting. And as part of that, you all know we'll be receiving the partnership award along with Marion County for the Courthouse Square project. And in addition to that, they always feature a couple of entities, and this year will be Salem-Keizer Transit will be one of them. And our presentation will be the 35th anniversary video honoring history. So we're going to show that at the annual meeting for everyone to see. I do believe it was in my weekly report, but I think it's important to bring up. Last week I testified at the Oregon Transportation Commission. It's a public hearing on the Connect Oregon grant program. We are the #1 project after the potential projects. And so I testified stating that if the commission chooses to look beyond that list, they know that their #1 project is ready to move forward, and that's the South Salem Transit Center design and engineering work. So we have applied, we were out, we might be back in, we'll know next month. But my hunch is it'll be difficult to get, but we had to go down fighting. So. And then the last item, I'd just like to thank President Thompson and Director Kelly for joining our retirement event here in this room on Monday. And Keith Russell, one of our operations supervisors, retired after 40 years and 1 day of service. He's been a mainstay in this organization, and it was a fantastic turnout, a huge amount of retirees. We always invite retirees to the retirement parties, and you can tell he's been around for 40 years. There was a room full of people. He was able to bring his 2 daughters and their families, so it was a great event, and I'd like to thank you two for coming, saying a few words. I think it was difficult for him to leave. He's been around so long, and I think this was a nice way to know he made a difference in his community. So it was a great event, and so we wish him well in his new journey. So with that, I conclude my report.
Thank you. And so we also had a holiday luncheon out at the maintenance facility, and had a good turnout there also. We had a number of listing meetings that Alan and I attended, where we presented information to various people about the proposed ballot measure that we approved a little earlier, sort of approved. Anyway.
Moving forward.
Right. And I did attend one of the STF meetings that John referred to. We did we attend the Chamber Forum where Dave Metzger, the composer or the arranger of
You need to talk.
the musical Frozen, I think, musical Frozen was an outstanding program. Attended a work session and, of course, the retirement that was referred to. So who else wants to? John, how about you starting?
Okay. Well, aside from the various Special Transportation Fund meetings, that's pretty much been it for me. Looking forward to the start of the ballot measure drum pounding. I had an experience yesterday that was novel to me. I actually took a carts out to Dallas to go to the carts meeting. It seemed somehow suitable, and it was pretty neat. Early in the morning, you could tell that they had a bunch of regulars on that bus, probably about 12 to 15, most of them Western Oregon students. And I was kind of surprised to see how enthusiastic everybody was to be on there. The good turnout, everybody knew everybody. It was working very well for them. Positive experience for me.
Hey, Brad.
I've been using the bus every day to travel to and from work, which has been great. I've had to do a few trips that I didn't anticipate, and so I've been using the transit app, which works great. So it's fun to see new technology that makes it even easier to get around. And I attended the Greater Gupser Neighborhood Association meeting. I'm still on the board, but Mark Collier is now our president, and does a great job. So it's definitely great to still help out in the community. And I've done some of the other things we've already talked about today, like Citizen Advisory Committee, and then the Chamber Policy Forum that was in the morning. So I think that's it for me.
Yeah, I did Citizens Advisory and the Chamber Forum, and had the opportunity this last weekend to utilize the transportation system in Las Vegas. So that was enlightening. I sat in the front seat so I could get the tour, and they were really happy to tell me how it's working and what's going on. And it's a different kind of crowd at midnight on the transit, so kind of interesting. But and that's about it.
Yeah, it moves about 2 miles an hour most of the day, I think. It moves about 2 miles an hour during most of the day. With terrible traffic down there. Bob?
Well, I had a more busy month than I thought. Worked a couple days out at Weddell Elementary School doing vision and screening testing, helping with that program as a volunteer. Attended the Chamber program when we presented our Moving Forward program. I attended a couple neighborhood meetings and attended the board work session. And I participated in the OMPOC meeting and a pre-meeting planning meeting for that. Attended the Oregon Association of Rail and Transit Advocates in Portland. Today I used your same chamber presentation, just changed the name to make it presentable, and gave it to my downtown Salem Lions Club. So I'm out there with the rubber chicken circuit. This week I've been not as busy on transit services because I've been working on some professional things with tour development for a company I work for, and working with some of the European transit systems in developing tour packages.
Okay, Marcia?
Well, for the district, I went to the Chamber Government Affairs Committee where we did the presentation. Went to the swearing in of the new city council members. And of course, again, the Area Commission on Transportation. I'm in charge of giving away books to students at Bush School for my Kiwanis group. So that's been exciting because we gave everybody in the school a book right before Christmas. And hosted Alan and Ted at our Kiwanis group for making a presentation on the Moving Forward, just as an ability to do that. I have had a constituent, Mark Connect, called about some concerns that I will share with the general manager on the chairlift service, and he's been at many of our meetings, so people probably know who he is. He's going to be having back surgery in February, so we need to keep him in our thoughts. I think that's pretty much about all I've done. I'm looking forward to the meetings next week and some other work, and getting out on the neighborhood association circuit for the May 19th election, because no matter what we do for the umpteenth dozen time, it seems like it's not quite that many times. I intend to be on the ballot, so we need Saturday and Sunday service.
So we are a full-service city with full-service.
Yeah.
Right.
My spouse tells me I at least have to put my name up until we have Saturday and Sunday service. So it's been a while and we went backwards.
There's 5 of us that have to run this time. Okay, is there anything else for the good of the order? Seeing none, thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.
Exactly.
May I use your cell